So another story about Donald Trump going after people in the media, this time the New York Times and CBS.
This man, I mean, every day it's something new. It's something crazier than the day before. But this is also a very serious issue because we have now seen him do this multiple times. And as I explained to my audience one time, when Trump says something, if he says it one time, you can dismiss it. When he says it twice, when he does it 3 times, that's when you know this man is serious about this and this is something that is going to happen. So he got on Truth Social multiple times in the past week, different days, different times, suggesting that he and his DOJ had actually opened an investigation into the New York Times. And part of it is due to, well, their polls for the 2024 election were off. They showed that Harris was probably going to win, but hey, he won instead. So he is now trying to convince the public that this is worthy of a criminal investigation, that they somehow committed election fraud by reporting these things or being overly negative on him. And this is just an attack on the freedom of the press. That's what this is. That's what his attack on 60 Minutes is. It's all going after the basic tenet of that First Amendment.
Well, and why are we doing this? Again, we've talked on other episodes about economic collapse. I don't think that's too strong a word. I think people that are watching this need to learn the word austerity because that's what's coming. You're talking about financial ruin in a lot of ways, and both sides tend to agree with that. Well, there's going to be austerity, there's going to be hardships. And he is doing personal grudges. Now, some folks say, oh, he's finally cracking down on the left-wing media. There's right-wing and left-wing media, and they can say what they want to. That's the beauty of this country and the difference between us and a dictatorship. I don't remember Bill Clinton. I don't remember George W. Bush. I don't remember Obama or Biden ever having the DOJ go after a newspaper. And they said some pretty horrific things about them. But the birther stuff with Obama, they're supposed to. That's the beauty of living in America. There's a great quote about don't pick a fight with somebody who bibs ink by the barrel. Presidents get bad coverage. That pushes newspapers. That's what people want to see. It's because they make mistakes. Anytime there's a decision, there's going to be people that agree with you, people who disagree with you. But going after people who disagree with you and saying that they have engaged in some conspiracy, you won. You won the election. And that's the difference, I think, between the 2020 election where he lost and he could never say that he lost, and there's this conspiracy theory, versus 2024. Joe Biden said he lost and he left the White House, and that was the end of it.
Yeah.
This man is fighting over something that happened. Even if you believe this happened, it's over. It's done. Why would you be using DOJ funds? And he loves to talk about crime. Obviously he's talking about opening up Alcatraz because all these dangerous criminals. If that is true, why are you targeting the New York Times as opposed to these dangerous criminals that you say exist?
Well, to me, I think there's 2 outcomes that he's hoping for, and he doesn't really even care which one it is. The first outcome is obviously he knows, and I think anybody who knows anything knows, you're not going to be able to convict these people. You're not going to take down the New York Times. You're not going to send them all to prison. So what he's hoping to do, one, is let's drain them of resources. Let's tie up their time in depositions with this BS investigation. You got to fly down to D.C., get into the DOJ, sit for 12-hour depositions. We're going to make your life hell. And we're going to drain your financial resources by making all of you hire lawyers. And at the end of it, there'll be no charges. You'll be free to go. But you've lost all your money. You've lost all your time. That's number one. Number 2 is the threat of that makes these reporters say, okay, you know what? We're not going to run this story on this guy. We're going to be a little nicer. We're going to stop with as much of the criticism. We're going to get rid of, like the Washington Post, we're not going to do editorials on him. No more op-eds going after this guy. That is, I do think he wants that one a little bit more because then he gets all the positive coverage that he loves to see, but he would also be okay with just draining them of their resources. Because those are the only 2 possible outcomes here. He's not going to get any of these people thrown in jail, but he can scare them enough to make them fall into line.
Well, it's particularly horrifying because what we've seen over the last 10, 20 years is a great contraction. There used to be local newspapers with a local reporter or a team of local reporters that would go out and investigate, your county commissioners. They would sit in those boring meetings and then tell us, the public, what was happening. That doesn't exist anymore. Outside of a few major entities, and the New York Times being one of them, there aren't journalists anymore. There are bloggers, there are color commentators, there's the AP Wire, but your local mid-sized city probably doesn't have a newspaper anymore.
Yeah, and so by going after these media outlets, because again, like you point out, we've already seen the big conglomerates gobble up all these local papers. Even if you think you have a local paper, it's probably owned by one of the bigger ones. You'll see the name on there, Gannett or anything like that. So he knows that he's got to go after the parents. And the parents are the companies like New York Times, the companies like Paramount that own CBS, that own 60 Minutes, and so on. So he wants to go after the big ones, because if you can get the big ones scared, all of the smaller ones immediately go into line, because they don't have the resources to fight like the New York Times would or like Paramount would. They have a lot of funds. They don't want to lose them hiring lawyers, but they can if they need to. I think this is also more of a shockwave against independent media outlets. Look what I can do to these people, and if I can do it to them, I can take you down in a day. That's what I think a lot of this is.
What would be the outcry if Joe Biden had said, I'm going to use the DOJ to investigate Breitbart News, or I'm going to use the DOJ to attack Fox News on the right? Again, I always think about, what if this was the other side politically? What would be the outcry? I mean, it would be tremendous. You would have legislation to stop this. There would be congressional inquiries. I cannot think of the last time there's been any congressional inquiry into what this man is doing or what his DOJ is doing, obviously with the deportations.
No, and that's, I think, a fun point too, because Republicans, right-wing media told us Biden was going to shut them down repeatedly, that he was censoring them. Having all of these, the social media was censoring them because Biden said to do it. He's going to come and shut us down. And it never happened. It was all fake. They had made it all up. And now that Trump is actually threatening to do it, they cheer it on like, hell yeah, take him down. Okay, well, keep in mind, if that happens, and if this is successful, if this is now where things are, then yeah, the next Democratic president is going to come for you. And all those fears that you stoked for decades, they're going to become your reality, because this is what you created, and you're going to get the blowback eventually.
We have to abide by rules. We live in a society, and we have to know that no matter what party you fall on, you will not always be in power. The American people are fickle, and the pendulum goes left, the pendulum goes right. We've certainly seen pretty wild shockwaves back and forth. I think this is part of the reason, too, that we need term limits on these folks. And I think that's an issue, one of the few issues that unites the left and the right, is that these Congress folks, I mean, they're geriatric. There's that one that was in the nursing home in Texas in a dementia ward.
Right, yeah.
She's still representative, I believe.
I will say this is the one thing I give Ted Cruz credit for. He's been one of the biggest people pushing for term limits. So that is the one thing I ever agree with Ted Cruz on. And I've said repeatedly, I'll join forces with you, man, because that is something we need. The problem is, of course, you have to get the very people who would be term limited to vote on putting the term limits in. So it's a horrible situation, but you're right. That may not immediately solve a lot of problems, but over time, it's going to help keep things fresh and possibly keep some real good fighters in there, get some real good fighters in there. Because right now, there are so few, you could count them on two hands.
Well, I think the problem is that most folks in Congress are worried about staying in Congress. And so that's why we're not seeing the investigations. There should be investigations into the executive threatening a media organization with the Department of Justice. But a lot of the people on the right are worried about what happens when I run for re-election, because he's proven I will come out and endorse the other candidate. And so he's brought them into line, and they're cheering this on. I mean, when you look at right-wing news, they're very excited about this. They say, yeah, the New York Times is a liberal rag. Yeah, this is this and that. But the issue is, even if it was a liberal rag, the Department of Justice should not be investigating, and that is one of the founding cores of this country, is that you can say what you want, particularly about elected officials.
For the people who used to carry around the little pocket constitutions, they certainly seem to know very little about it.
It's not that long of a read, and I would encourage a lot of the newly elected congressional members to read it.